Good morning and welcome to the DF Army YouTube channel. I'm Raz11 and you can find me on X at Raz11Grinds. We are going to take a look at some Underdog and just MLB playoff best ball. There might be some other sites that have some sort of contest for it, but Underdog definitely has the best offering. This $10, 10K to first, 100K prize pool. Super nice, super interesting. This is video number 2. This video I am going to be talking about the NL, but I will kind of go over some of the pieces of information for this contest. It is a 3-round contest. First round includes the Wild Card Series and the Division Series. Second round, the Championship Series, and then the final is the World Series. Roster of 3 pitchers, an infielder, outfielder, 2 flex, and then 5 bench spots. The goal: to get as many guys through to the World Series as possible. Best way to do that, basically stacking 2 teams across your entire lineup. Adding in a third is fine, as long as it's not in the same league as the team that you're stacking the most. You know, like if you have 6 Dodgers, your other 6 spots are split between 2 teams. You kind of want those other 2 teams to be in the AL, trying to get that pairing right for the World Series and hoping you get there. I did do one draft myself earlier. This is kind of where I ended up. As you can see, I started out heavy Dodgers, added Seattle, sprinkled in a mistake Dylan Cease pick. I talked about that on the AL video. I was running low on time and I just panic picked. I should have taken George Kirby. But Dodgers, Seattle, and then closed it out with a mini for Cleveland. Which I think most likely you're going to end up on 3-team builds, but if you can find yourself in the perfect draft and just a 2-teamer, I think you're in a great spot. So you're basically just treating it like NFL Showdown and you're telling a story. That's what your draft is you're telling the story of the postseason to try to get there. Brought up this on the other video, but on this one we are going to be focusing on the National League side of things. I did talk about the pitching for the AL. Let's talk about it for the NL. Now, a reminder that whoever starts Game 1 of the Wild Card Series is not going to be starting Game 1 of the Division Series. The Game 2 starter won't be starting either. You know, the Wild Card Series is just the best of 3, where the higher seed is the home team for all 3 games. So pitching is going to be important to figure out, you know, who's going to have the opportunity to pitch multiple times in a series. The Division Series is a best of 5. So, you know, you're probably looking at 1 pitcher pitching twice in that series if it goes all 5. For Cincinnati, LA, Game 1, from my belief, it's going to be Hunter Green versus Blake Snell. Game 2, I believe it'll be Lodolo versus Yamamoto. Game 3, if it gets there, I think it's either Littell or Abbott versus Ohtani or Glasnow, and I think it's going to be Ohtani, with Glasnow kind of coming out of the bullpen or being ready to go for Game 1 of the Division Series. The San Diego-Chicago matchup. Looks like it's going to be Pivetta for San Diego for sure, and then I think it's going to be Imanaga for the Cubs. Game 2 would be Cease for San Diego, and then probably Boyd. I think you can flip-flop Boyd or Imanaga for 1 or 2. I think that's kind of how it'll land. And then Game 3 is going to be Tyon for the Cubs, with Horton being on the IL. And then for San Diego, it's either Michael King or Yu Darvish. Not sure which route they're going to go. I lean Darvish, but it's certainly possible they might not, and they could go King. So that's going to be interesting to see. You know, pitching-wise, I think San Diego has the advantage in the first 2 games. In the other series, I think the Dodgers obviously have the advantage, even though I think Hunter Green might surprise and offer a ton of upside against Blake Snell. But I just, Yamamoto and Ohtani over Lodolo and Littell for me, you know, in that particular matchup. But still, like, that kind of breaks it down. Now, say Cincinnati, LA goes for, you know, all 3 of the games, you'd be looking at whoever advances, looking at probably Abbott or Glass now as the starter for Game 1 against the Phillies. On the other side, San Diego, Chicago. If it goes all three, like, you're probably looking at Darvish or King for San Diego against the Brewers. And I'm not really sure what the Cubs would do. With Horton, like, they could go with Colin Ray, maybe Savali, a combination of the two, or Assad. I don't think they would go there. I think it would kind of be a Ray with Savali. I'm not sure what Horton's status is, if he's going to be back for the wildcard series or any part of the postseason. I think he was dealing with a broken rib, which feels kind of tough to come back from and be a pitcher right away, but we will see. But so for now, I'm not really sure who the Cubs have as their fourth starter, which is probably something to think about when taking, Brewers bats or even Brewers pitchers, for being able to extend themselves. The Brewers' number one is obviously going to be Freddie Peralta. So that means he's looking at potentially 2 starts in the division series. Where with the Phillies, like, you have guys, Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez, for sure. And then Jesus Luzardo, Aaron Nola, are they going to rely on him? I think they're going to go with a 4-man staff, to be honest, because I just don't think they can ask Nola to not be in it. They're definitely missing Zach Wheeler, but it's still a strong staff. If the Reds happen to pass the Dodgers and advance, like, that Philly staff is in a great spot, because the Reds can struggle a lot against left-handed pitching, and you'd be talking about the Phillies rolling out left-handed pitchers for games 1, 2, and 3. No, obviously they could slide Nola in to separate them. But even then, like, the Dodgers could struggle a little bit against that left-handed rotation too. Kind of neutralizing Ohtani a little bit, Freddie Freeman a bit, without them having Will Smith and his ability against left-handed pitching, Max Muncy, Conforto, even though he's had a pretty bad year overall, he's still been in the lineup basically every day. So it's very interesting to think about the angles from some of these matchups. With that said, like, I still think it's the Dodgers coming out of the NL. Maybe I just don't have enough respect for the Brewers. I love the Phillies from a postseason standpoint. They've given us so many, fun series the last handful of years. So it's tough to pick against them, but, like, it's still the Dodgers. They still have big-time names with huge ceilings. And obviously, if you're going to rely on, say the Dodgers, then you're not going to draft Phillies bats, right? Like, because you're not going to want to just automatically lose some of them after the division series. Like, you're going to pair Dodgers with teams in the AL, like I did in the draft that I showed. If you're going to draft the Phillies, then you're going to pair that with a team that's playing in the wildcard round in the AL for sure, and probably a team from the NL. Like, it depends on how many Phillies bats you end up with. It's 12 rounds, so, like, if you go 6 bats from your main team, or 6, not 6 bats, but 6 players, combination of bats and pitchers, then you're going to split the other 6 spots among, 2 teams in the AL, if you're taking the Phillies. Brewers, they're just so tough to want to just fully commit to as a stack. It's not like they have a bunch of guys that have huge ceilings. So then, like, what are you doing? You're pairing the Brewers with probably the Yankees, right? Like, the Yankees in the AL go early enough, but, the Padres, the Cubs, each of those teams could definitely beat the Brewers. I wouldn't be overly shocked. I live in Wisconsin, so, like, there'd be a lot of upset people, but it would not shock me. Like, the Cubs have the offense. They just might not have the pitching. Aside from that Detroit-Cleveland series, I think the Cubs' starting pitching is the weakest. It's definitely the weakest in the National League. From a name standpoint. Like, if the Reds can pull off a stunner against the Dodgers, can they do it again? Like, can they keep their emotions in check after beating the Dodgers in a 3-game series to then go and beat Philly in a 5-gamer, where they have to play 3 games in Philadelphia. I'm just not sure they have enough to make that kind of a run, but maybe they do, and I'm just underestimating them. I would love to see it from a Hunter Green and Lodolo standpoint, since I'm a huge fan of those guys. But, like I mentioned before, you're just trying to tell stories with what you're doing. So maybe if you're going heavy Cincinnati, like, what are you going to do? Pair them with maybe Seattle? Maybe Seattle and Boston? Seattle and Detroit, maybe? Seems interesting. You just don't... Maybe Cincinnati and Toronto if you think they come through, but, it's trying to figure out those combinations. And like I mentioned, if you're stacking Philadelphia or Milwaukee as your main team, well, then your other guys better be playing in the opening round of the Wild Card Series, just because, that's potential of 3 games that you're missing out on by going all heavy with teams that are on bye, and then you have a 5-game series to make up for it. To where, even if they won and they swept, you probably wouldn't even want your team to sweep then in 3 games. You want the more games, because if Philadelphia sweeps 3 games, they've only played 3, and say Cincinnati or LA won their series playing all 3, now those guys have played 6 games to get there. So advancing becomes a little more difficult. So, you just have to juggle as many games as you possibly can together. Now, that doesn't mean skip out on all the teams that are getting the wild card round bye. That would be really painful, because obviously they're the best teams. As you know, with Seattle and Philadelphia, you're looking at 2 of the best rotation options. 2 out of the top 4, if you include New York, but definitely including the Dodgers. You need those arms. Aces are super important in this format. Everybody starts 3 pitchers each round. And it's a 6-man draft. So you're looking at 18 pitchers being drafted at minimum. We saw 26 pitchers drafted. This guy went with just 3 of them and 3 alone. I kind of felt like I probably should have went with 5. So that maybe that was my mistake a little bit. Went a little heavy on the infielders, which I think is fine. But I probably needed another outfielder in there somewhere, potentially. But yeah, it's just a matter of putting pieces together, right? This one hole got the Yankees and Phillies together. All 12 rounds. Maybe that's why he didn't go with more than 3 pitchers. He was able to get all 12 rounds, Yankees and Phillies. Pretty strong draft, I'll be honest. That's something I wish I could have pulled off. This guy here went Philly and Detroit the first 5 rounds. Added in Detroit, and then some Boston. So Philly with 2 teams, and then 2 teams from the AL. So you see, the combinations that people are trying to get. This guy down here at the end who stole my 2 pitchers, Toronto and LA, the entire way through. So you see what guys are trying to do. You pay attention to their draft, you can get an idea of what they're trying to pair together. But you're trying to make sure you get the guys you're targeting first. You might have to reach for a couple of them. Don't fall victim to just going by ADP. A lot of that ADP is just driven by combinations that people are taking like this. So, but there we have it. There's our National League view of the contest over at Underdog. If you want to join me on Underdog, I'll drop a link in the description. They do have a deposit match going on of up to $1,000. Pretty impressive deposit match. I will link the AL version of this video in the comments below as well, so you can check them both out. And then I will be dropping a video where I am doing a couple of drafts, just to get an idea of how they roll. So, best of luck, everybody.